Back in 2009, I was in high school, playing way too much Borderlands and getting really inspired to make my own games. So I started up Game Maker. The first game I made was called Fun. It's an interactive screensaver that really just uses the different functions of Game Maker to make a bunch of particles behave in certain ways. There's no game to win, but it's fun to mess around with. The next game I made was called Vortex Boxes. I wanted to make a twist on match 3 puzzle games, and in this case, literally twisting gravity. I got the mechanic working, but I didn't know what I wanted for the matching and stopped working on it after that. Again, it's something fun to play around with, but not a winnable game. The next game I made was called Pyro, which was a chain reaction game about burning down the forest. By placing explosive barrels, you can set off chains of adjacent trees on fire. The more trees you burn down, the more barrels you get. I'm still proud of this one, and I've returned to this idea a couple times since. In 2010, I started college to pursue a Bachelor of Innovation in Game Design and Development. The first few classes started with Game Maker before transitioning into actual programming. The last game I made in Game Maker was a basic side-scrolling zombie killing game called Zambies. It's fairly simple with a bunch of unnecessary details. Killing zombies covers the arena in blood, with blood dripping from the ceiling. I like weather in games and added rain and snow into the game as well. I'm pretty happy with how this game turned out, even if it's a basic idea.
It's me, Mario!
During 2012, I discovered something called Audio Tool that lets you make music in a browser. I wanted to learn all the parts of making games, and this seemed like a good place to start for learning music production. It had a lot of great samples, so of course I started with a Mario remix. Speaking of samples, the next song I made was called Adult Dubstep, which I will let you discover for yourself. The last thing I made was a music box song for my girlfriend at the time. I haven't messed around with making music in a long time, but I had fun with it. A quick PSA at this point. Back up your stuff. In high school, I lost a few games that I was only keeping on a jump drive, and in college, I lost a bunch of stuff when I melted a laptop playing too much Borderlands 2. I started learning the Unity game engine at this time, and I also lost the super simple dumb horror game I made as well. The rest of the video games from here on out are all in Unity. Jumping to 2014, I started my year with the first of many global game jams. A game jam is where you get together with a team and try to make a game in 48 hours. The theme for the jam was, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. That long, convoluted theme for us turned into a matter of perspective and to the story about the 3 blind men and the elephant. The game was about an elephant navigating a 3D maze while looking at 3 different 2D views of the maze. The full vision was to have different players only being able to look at one perspective, but it ended up being all 3 views on one screen to make it easier to play. If you've ever wanted to get into games, hit up a game jam and it will give you a good taste of what it's all about. I was in my last year of college at this point, and our thesis was to make a full game by ourselves. The game I made was called Punching Things. It's a procedurally generated beat-em-up about robots destroying each other. I had a ton of fun making it, and I even played around with giving the robots different emotions and behaviors to make each fight different. I'm not the best artist, so the background is kinda sad, but I got the gameplay to a place that is fairly fun. For my final college project, I felt like I went out on a high note. For my first post-college game, I made a balance game called Wispy. I had just been let go after a couple weeks at a startup, and I thought it would be a good chance to make a quick mobile game. You play as a wisp in a bubble saving other wisps from little spiky enemies. My then girlfriend did all of the art, so it actually looked somewhat presentable. I released it on the Amazon store because that's the only mobile device I had access to at the time. It got some downloads for a while before it got hit with a couple of 1-star reviews. I still have fun playing the game from time to time, but I don't know that I'll ever do a balance game again. The start of 2015 meant another global game jam. They went with a really vague and confusing theme that was, what do we do now? I took this theme to be a crowd doing a vote, and to play around with the Twitch Plays Pokemon idea, we went with Twitch Plays Tamagotchi. We got a cute little Blobzilla pet made, but we didn't get to properly test the chat, so it kinda just explodes. Switching from video games for a moment, the end of 2015 saw the Hasbro Gaming Lab. I came up with a card game meant for anyone to join or leave at any time. Players are time thieves, stealing things from throughout time and from each other. It was an interesting experiment, but designing a card game around a fluctuating number of players is hard. Back to video games, the start of 2016 meant another global game jam. After the esoteric themes of the past years, they went with the much easier to parse theme of ritual. Somehow, for our team, this turned into walking around an office completing mini-games while also sacrificing your coworkers to the Llama God. We got a bunch of features into the game, and it turned out great. Someone even did a Let's Play of it. I spent the rest of 2016 unemployed and horribly depressed, so that was the only game I made that year. 2017 started with another global game jam. The theme they did was Waves, which translated into a multiplayer game about water dragons surfing on waves. For this year, the team we had was a bit big, the networking wasn't working, and the waves took a while to implement, so we bit off more than we could chew. The wave effect was awesome and the art was great, but there wasn't really a game you could play. Determined to make more games, I entered the 2017 My First Game Jam in the summer. I spent a week working on an idea to make a multiplayer version of the game Fury with little wooden characters. The game wasn't great to look at, but the gameplay was okay, and it gave me a good foundation for making other local multiplayer games. The start of 2018 meant yet another global game jam. This year we came armed with the Oculus Rift. The theme of the game was transmission, so we drop players into someone's veins to fight off the bird flu, while another player watches on the monitor to keep them safe. It ended up being a fairly fun local multiplayer horror experience in VR, although I got plenty motion sick testing it. In 2018, I finally remembered Let 'em Dare was a thing and tried it out for the first time. The theme for this event was running out of space. I had the idea of doing a local multiplayer game after my previous endeavor, but this time it was about running from rising lava. After getting it done, I was disappointed with it. It was working, it just wasn't fun. It's most definitely the least interesting, least fun game of the bunch. I tried the other Let 'em Dare event later in the year with only a slight bit more success. The theme was sacrifices must be made, so I made a beat 'em up about Satan punching people's hearts out. It didn't fit the theme well, but I made a cool Satan character. Back to the global game jams, 2019 had the theme of What Home Means to You, which turned into relief from social anxiety. We called it Hedgehogs Dilemma, where you play as a hedgehog needing to complete chores while not getting too stressed out about it. It's one of the simplest games I've made for a game jam, but it was still fun to make. The middle of 2019, I did another game jam, this one being the Game Maker's Toolkit game jam. The theme was Only One, so I had the dumb idea of a fighting game with only one player. In this case, it meant punching yourself in the face until you knock yourself out. The physics-based arm movement is clunky and hilarious, and I had a great time making it. At the end of 2019, after I finished playing through Borderlands 3, I started working on a longer-form game called Altercation. I've always wanted to play a game with the ultimate character customization engine, in both looks and gameplay, so I started making this. My artistic skills are lacking, and I didn't want to drag anyone into something I might not finish, so I made the game in pixel art. I'll be working on this for a long time, so follow the progress on social media. Going into 2020, I'm still going strong. I did yet another global game jam, this time tackling another VR game. The theme was Repair, which translated into a player becoming a spider to repair their web. I was really proud of this project because not only did I make all of the gameplay, I also taught someone with no Unity experience enough to make the menus for the game. I also started making a board game this year as well. So, this video is actually the first in a 3-part series. During all this time, I was still developing things and tinkering with ideas. So this first video was all the stuff I finished, the next video is going to be all the stuff I didn't finish, and the last video in the series is going to be all the stuff I haven't even started on. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see more of the series, hit subscribe. After this set of videos, I'll do some devlog videos about Altercation, so stick around for that. Thanks for watching and have fun sleeping!